Hello, it's Darren here from Silver Peacock again. Many of you may be aware that there's been a new business subsidy offered by the government to help us through this coronavirus epidemic. It's called JobKeeper payment. And WAGD has asked that I put together an explainer video to let you know about this new subsidy that is available for businesses, and to explain how it works, explain the eligibility requirements, and see if we can help you get this subsidy, which will be very, very beneficial for your business. Okay, let's get into it. Let's look at the JobKeeper payment and let's look at how it actually works. First, let's start with a little bit of background. Under the JobKeeper payment, businesses are impacted by the coronavirus. Now we're going to explain the criteria for that in a moment, but those affected businesses can have access to this subsidy, which has been called JobKeeper, and it will predominantly help to continue paying their employees during this crisis. It will comprise of a fortnightly payment of $1,500 per employee. So keep that in mind. It's fortnightly, $1,500 a fortnight. It is backdated to the 30th of March, and it will continue for 6 months, guaranteed. Now, who is an eligible employer? So let's look at the criteria for that first. You'll be an eligible employer, eligible for this subsidy, if your turnover, that's predominantly your sales or your income, and this is gross income, gross sales before your expenses. So if your income is reduced by more than 30% compared to a year ago, so you'll need to demonstrate at least 1 month where your income has dropped by at least 30%. So we can help you put that together and do that analysis if you need that. Of course, it would be very obvious for some of you. Others may need a bit more work on that. And you must have had employees, a relationship with people, with employees as at the 1st of March this year. So turnovers dropped by at least 30%, and you've had employees. You might still have them, but you must have had them as at the 1st of March 2020. Okay, who are the eligible employees? So that was the eligible employers. What about eligible employees? Well, they must be currently employed by you, by your business, but that can also include those that you have stood down. Okay, so you can now rehire them if this subsidy will allow you to do that. So even though they may not be actually working for you now, you may have stood them down, you can now reinstate them and continue to pay them through this subsidy. This is a big one. They must have been employed by you as at the 1st of March 2020. Now, some of our clients have contacted us and said, we put on people on the 3rd of March, on the 5th of March. Look, there may be some appeal process. We don't know that yet. We don't know how that will work, but this is the criteria that we do know and that we can be confident of. It doesn't matter if they're not full-time employees. They can be part-timers. They can be casuals. If they're casuals, they must have been with you for at least 12 months as at the 1st of March. So it's long-term casuals, not ones that you just put on recently. So full-time, part-time, and long-term casuals are eligible for this payment. There's an application process. We've already started this with some of our clients, and feel free to talk to us if you want a hand with this. We're more than happy to help you. Initially, what you do is register your interest. So there's a link on the ATO's website. You can click on that and you register your interest. It's very basic information they're collecting at the moment, just contact details, ABN, etc. So it's very basic information. It's just registering that you are interested. After you've registered, I imagine the next week or so, if you've registered, you'll be asked to fill out a complete online application, which will be more detailed. We haven't seen that yet. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know what information they're going to ask for, but that is something that is pending that we'll need to do at some stage. As part of that process, we're being told you need to identify your eligible employees at that point. So when we get the more detailed application given to us, then we'll nominate the employees that meet the criteria that were with us on the 1st of March, for example. And we're also told we're going to need to give monthly updates to the ATO of the status of those employees, that they're still with us, we're still looking after them, we still have a relationship with them, etc. Right, the payments. When will the payments be received? And this is another question we've received a lot from our clients. The first payment, we're told, will be received to the employer, to the small business owner, in the first week of May. So it will be backdated, it will be a lump sum catch-up payment, but we won't get that until the first week of May. So keep that in mind. You may need, if you're going to reinstate employees and put them back on, you may have to carry them on with your cash flow until you get reimbursed in the first week of May. And another criteria is that you need to, as an employer, as a small business, you will need to pass that on. The whole $1,500 must be passed on to your employee. You don't get to keep some of it. Even if your employee is a part-timer or a casual who earns less than that, you pass the entire amount on. You don't get to keep any of it. Superannuation, it's a little bit tricky trying to work out the superannuation requirements, but from how we understand it, if you are just paying, let's say you're a business that's closed down, like a hairdresser or a cafe, and you're just going to pass this on to your employees, you don't need to pay superannuation, or it's up to you if you want to pay superannuation on that money. If they're employees that are already working for you, already involved and continue to be involved, and you're an active operating business, it appears that you only need to pay super on what you're currently paying those employees. And if you're paying them less than $1,500, you don't need to pay super on the amount above what you pay them, up to $1,500. Now, this is a very vexed question. We've got a lot of queries about this. What about businesses that don't have employees? Now, if you're a sole trader, I think it'll be very straightforward. The one that we don't know 100% how it's going to work are small companies, very small companies that have a working director who either doesn't pay himself or herself much money. They might take a little bit out of the company to live on. They're under the tax-free threshold. They may not even be registered for PAYG. They're sole directors. How are they going to operate, and what criteria is related to them? Now, from what we can determine, you will still get this as a working director in a company. And it appears that you can apply for JobKeeper for yourself. So if you are a business that doesn't actually have registered employees as such, in the application when it finally comes, you'll need to nominate an individual in that business who earns money out of that business to live. So if you're a working director, you know, you're a courier, for example, and you take a little bit of money out of the business to live, you'll need to nominate yourself and give them your personal TFN, and you'll need to provide a declaration to the ATO in the application to say you are living and providing your living out of that company. And so we think the combination of the declaration and your individual TFN will be enough to help working directors, even if they don't pay themselves a formal salary. And you'll need to provide monthly updates to the ATO. You need to declare the payments you've made, and they'll go directly into your individual bank account in these scenarios. Now, here's a hint. As we've looked through the legislation, we've looked through the different advice documents that have come through. It looks like the ATO will be basing a lot of their information on the single touch payroll system. Most employers are already registered for this. For our real small guys who aren't, maybe worth getting STP, as it's called, single touch payroll, up and running on your Xero or your MyOb and register it, because that is what the ATO is going to base the information on as to who is eligible. So they say for most of their payments. So it would be worth getting that up and running, I think. So get STP established using Xero or MyOb. And in the STP systems, like Xero, for example, you can lodge an electronic TFN declaration that'll have all your details in it. So including the working director, you can lodge a TFN declaration, which would be very good. One of the questions we get asked is, can a business keep the money? Now, the answer is absolutely not. So if you're receiving these payments, you cannot keep that money. you'll be required to pass those payments directly on to the eligible employees for whom you are collecting them for. You'll pass it on as a wage or a subsidy of their wage if they're being paid more. And you must notify the employees that they are receiving this payment and that you're receiving it on their behalf. Another question is, when will we receive the first payment? Employees will receive the payment in the first week of May. However, payments will be backdated to the 1st of March 2020. So keep that in mind. You won't get the money until the first week of May. However, they're going to be backdated to the 1st of March 2020. Another question, what if employees earn less than the $1,500 than the amount? Well, if they earn less, you still have to pass on the whole $1,500. So make sure you do that. Here's an example from the ATO. The example is a receptionist called Anne. She earns $1,000 per fortnight before tax. Even though she only earns $1,000 a fortnight, you will be required to pass the whole $1,500 on to Anne, not just $1,000 and keep the difference. So that's very important. In this example, you would still pay super on the $1,000 that she would get anyway normally, and it's optional whether you pay super on the additional $500. Okay, another question we've been asked. I've terminated my employees. What should I do? I now know that I've got this subsidy that I'm entitled to. What should I do? Well, if you're still operating your business, you can consider rehiring your employees. And this is a really good thing. You don't have to have them under the same arrangement. If they were, for example, full-timers, you could put them on part-timers. That's fine, and you still are entitled to this subsidy, which will be very helpful. Now, be aware that some of your employees, if you've terminated some of them, they may already be getting job seeker payment from Centrelink. That's like unemployment benefits. If they're rehired, those payments will cease and they're going to get the JobKeeper payments. So don't get those two confused. Job seeker is like unemployment benefits. JobKeeper is this subsidy that runs through your employer, through your business, which is higher. So this one is more beneficial. Once rehired, remember that if you put your employees back on, they're going to start accruing holiday pay and annual leave and sick leave and all those normal things accordingly. The ATO have given us an example. Here's an employer with employees that have been stood down. So in this case, this is an example straight from the ATO. Her name's Zara. She runs a beauty salon. She normally employs 3 permanent beauticians, but now she's not allowed to operate under the new rules, so she's shut the business down. So they've been put off without pay. Her turnover will definitely be reduced more than 30%. She's not earning anything at the moment. So she's entitled for payments for these 3 beauticians that she has working for her. So part of the arrangements are she keeps a connection with them with the intention of putting them back on once her business is able to do that. She has to advise them that she's nominated them, that they will now receive this payment. And it's up to her whether she pays super for them in this example. So because they're not really working for her in this particular example. And so if these 3 beauticians have already been getting Centrelink payments through JobSeeker, they've got to advise Services Australia that they're now on JobKeeper instead. Okay, well, that's the end of our presentation. I hope that was helpful. If you need any help with implementing this or you want to get some more information, don't hesitate to contact WAGD or myself or the team at Silver Peacock. And on behalf of everyone at Silver Peacock, we hope that you're keeping safe, and we hope that everything's going okay for you and your family at this particular time. And remember, we're here to help. We want to get all of our clients through this period. Thank you.